Hello, YouTube land. How is everybody doing? I hope you said great. Before I get started with another Fireside chat, I'd like to put out a New Year's resolution for all of us on YouTube land. My New Year's resolution for all of us is peace, love, and goodwill to all people. That rather than bickering and fighting, backstabbing, plotting, and conniving, and causing harm on others, that we, as YouTube people, turn over a new leaf and try to do good, try to treat others as how we would want to be treated, and make your channels a good place to be, rather than a den of vipers. Anyway, with that said, grab a rock, a log, a chair, and let's sit around the campfire. Today's Fireside chat is not one of my own, but rather my uncle. And it's rather interesting, and I think you'll enjoy it. This takes place at around the 1990s in Alaska. My uncle and his friend Art were planning a fishing trip where they had to fly in to a secluded river to fish for king salmon. Now, they had all their gear packed in the truck, including their firearms. They both had a handgun, which any Alaskan carries whenever they go out into the brush. And on their way to the airport, they decided to grab a bite to eat. So they took their pistols off their belts and they stuck them underneath the front seat. And they proceeded to go in and eat. And when they were done eating, they got in the vehicle, drove on to the airport, loaded everything onto the float plane, and they took off, got down to the river, unloaded everything, only to realize that they forgot their handguns underneath the front seat of the truck. So they're out on this secluded river with the king salmon running up it with no firearm to protect them from the bears. Well, like all Alaskans, they're not going to let that slow them down, especially on a fishing trip. So they continued to go fishing. The float plane took off. And actually, I don't believe it was a float plane. I think it was a bush plane with the big oversized rubber wheels. But either way, the plane took off and left them. And so how the story goes, what my uncle told me, is that he was out there fishing. And him and his friend Art, they both had caught one salmon apiece. And they had him on the stringer in the water and trying to catch their second salmon apiece. And my uncle hooked into his second salmon, and while he's fighting it, he heard a noise behind him. And he turned around, and it was a big brown bear walking straight for him. So my uncle went ahead and cut his line because he didn't want to be fighting this fish while this bear's coming up. And as the bear was walking towards my uncle, he came up to the tackle box. And my uncle said that he stuck his nose into the tackle box and came up, and there were some lures that were stuck to his snout. The bear shook his head, and the lures popped off of his nose, and the bear proceeded to walk towards my uncle. Now, my uncle at this time, he's backing up, and he's right on the river's edge, and he's debating whether to jump into the river and swim to the other side or stand his ground. He said that he had his fishing pole in his left hand, and he grabbed his hunting knife and had that in the right hand, and as what he told me, that if he had to fight the bear, at least the bear wasn't going to leave without having some wounds on it. The bear got about 3 feet from my uncle and stuck his head up in the air, took a few sniffs, and then snorted, shook his head, and turned and proceeded to walk up the river. Now, my uncle says he didn't think that the bear particularly liked my uncle's cologne and decided to move on. But then the bear tripped over the stringer of the 2 salmon that were in the water, and the bear kind of got mad and swiped at one of them, put a claw marks on the one fish, and then grabbed the other fish and ripped it off the stringer and went on up into the bank, into the tall grass, and they could hear the bear in there scarfing that one salmon down. Now, I asked my uncle, what did you do then? And he said, well, we waited to see what the bear was going to do, and the bear finally took off, and we just continued to fish, and both of them wound up getting their limit of 2 salmon. Now, I don't know about you guys, but me, I think I would have been done. I think I would have been ready to leave. I have seen how big these brown bear get up in Alaska, and they're huge. Way bigger than a black bear, by far. And when they stand on their hind legs, they can be 8 to 10 feet tall. And I think on record the biggest one could stand on his hind legs and look into a second-story window. That's how tall that they can actually get. I know that there is a stuffed brown bear at the Anchorage airport, and that one, I believe, is 14 feet tall. It's so tall that they can't even have it standing upright because it hits the ceiling. And there's a picture where my son is standing next to it, and this bear, his claws, his paw is bigger than my son's head or his chest. And that brown bear could easily put my son's head in its mouth, no problem at all. The claws on them are easily as long as your fingers are, if not longer. So the amount of damage they could inflict on a person is massive. So yeah, with a confrontation like that, I would have been done. I know that when I was up there doing salmon fishing on the Kenai Peninsula, on the Kenai River, and the whole time I'm sitting there fishing for salmon, I kept looking over my back, over my shoulder, making sure that there were no bears sneaking up behind me. Because the river, you know how noisy it is by a river, you can't really hear things because of the noise of the rapid water. And, well, it was kind of an eerie feeling knowing that there was an apex predator out there that was way bigger than me and have no problem eating me. I'd be a morsel little snack. So, anyway, I thought that I would share that little story with you, and hopefully didn't spook you too much. But seeing that our campfire is starting to run out, we probably should leave before the bears show up. Anyway, you guys have a great day, great new year, and please treat people how you want them to treat you. God bless you.